So I am very goal oriented. So when I set a goal, I have to follow through. I have to achieve it. Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Hi, everybody. So this is a really unique episode. I am actually on the other side of the microphone. I am being interviewed by David Leifeste. And if you guys remember David, he was on the podcast a few episodes ago. He is a licensed professional counselor. He's a life coach, just an incredible individual. So he turns the tables on me, and we had a great conversation. And I can only imagine that this would be what it would be like to be coached by him or, visit with him in a session. He was very insightful, and I just felt so affirmed in choices that I've made in my life. And you'll get to hear about that and what brought me to where I am now. So I really hope that you enjoy this episode. It was a lot of fun to do and really interesting for me. So the other thing that I want to mention is I still have a few tickets available for the Conversations with Passion and Purpose, which is my in-person event at the end of January. It's January 26th from 11:30 to 1. And if you are interested, you can still grab a ticket. There are a few available at the regular tickets and then a few student tickets available. So go ahead and grab one of those. It's going to be a great time. If you want to be in a room with passionate and interesting and purpose-filled people, then this is the room to be in. So grab a ticket and make the time to be there, because I think this will be a great investment in yourself. And hopefully later on, if you're not able to join us, you'll be able to join us later on, because I'm planning on doing this several times this year. So tickets are available at sharingpassionandpurpose.com. You can also go to my Instagram, and in the link in my bio, it's the first thing on the list is purchasing tickets for this event. So I hope to see you there.
Nancy, I just love coming over to your house. This is the most fun. Thank you for having me over. And we're in your studio at the house on a gorgeous Tuesday morning.
Yes.
And I had asked you after you had me on the last time. By the way, I'm David Leifeste. And you were so gracious to interview me a few weeks back and talk a little bit about my life coaching and my book that's coming out. And I was just so grateful for that.
Well, let me tell you real quick. I have had so many people say how much they loved that episode.
Oh, well, good.
Yes,
I wondered what happened.
And they enjoyed hearing from you and what you had to say. I know it resonated with a lot of people, but I'm hoping that it was worth your time in coming to talk to me too.
Oh my gosh, I come over here, all day, every day, right? Yeah, you're just the best. And I'm so glad somebody got some use out of it, that you thought there was some good feedback.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I wanted to ask you about that. But when we were meeting, I thought, well, what does everybody know about this Nancy lady? I was loving getting to know you a little better, and I still don't know you that well, but I wanted to get to know you better. And I thought, would your guest, I'm calling him our guest.
Yeah, call him
our
guest.
up and coming Nancy and Dave show. Would they like to, would you be in a place where having your story told again might be helpful? Because I think that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. And you said you wouldn't mind doing that. So, and I thought, well, can I do the interview? And you said you'd let me do that. So here we are this morning, and I appreciate so much this opportunity to get to talk to Nancy. I've got Nancy on the other side of the desk this morning. she's in the guest seat and I'm in her seat, and I've already taken over her show.
It already feels different.
Okay.
I'm going to say, it already feels different sitting on this side.
I know, it's like me on the couch at my office,
right.
Someone's going, okay, now you're going to be talking. I go, no, get me back in my chair.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, most of your show now has been going on. You've had it for what?
So it started in 2020.
2020, okay.
And it actually, I had this idea and registered for the business in 2018, but we'll probably get to that.
Okay.
But I actually had my first podcast episode that I recorded and shared in November of 2020.
So we're at 3 years just this past month.
Yes.
You are at 3 years.
Yes.
So happy anniversary.
Yes,
That's
thank
fantastic.
you. Thank you.
And the idea of, okay, so first of all, we know your podcast is about passion and purpose, and everybody loves passion and purpose. I want to talk more about that in a few minutes, but I want to make sure people know Nancy just a little bit, the person, right? So why like I always feel like context is super important. Like, where did you come from, and what do you think were the influences that were acting on you that would bring you to a place where you would think about things like that? And so you mentioned that you're from Stillwater, is that right? And then you went to school there, right? And so tell us just a little bit about, so we can see your life real briefly as a little girl, and what was happening that would bring us to this beautiful woman today in Midtown with her husband, her 2 adult children, and her teaching all these 20 years about business and other kinds of things, right?
Yes.
And but then really getting to a place where you said, what matters is people need to understand their purpose, and they need to be passionate about their lives. So can you give us a little bit about how it started, the little Nancy that maybe has now led up to the Nancy we have today, who's about such things?
Okay, yes. And I haven't talked about this on my podcast, I don't think.
Okay, because I always think these things start a lot sooner than we are aware.
Yes.
And I was just thinking maybe you might know a little bit about that. So some people are younger who are listening. Some people are already in college. Some people are older. But it's kind of interesting to think maybe we can inspire our children to be tuned in to the part of them that I think you're tuned in today, which I feel like is the most important part. It's like, why? Why are we here? What are we doing with our time? What is of meaning? What is of purpose? And that we're living true to our callings, to our gifts, and that our lives, therefore, are lived real intentionally to that end. So that we are then having rich lives that are interesting lives, and that are lives that are contributing maximally to a world that is needing each of us. So I'm always curious, like, what was little Nancy like that got her to the place where she's now being such a big agent? You're being a significant catalytic agent today to help people do this in their own lives, right? And become a passionate, purpose-filled living life.
I will say that's my goal.
Okay.
Yeah, I am hoping to inspire that and to be a resource for that. Okay. So I grew up in Stillwater, and my dad worked for Oklahoma State University. So I was actually born in Oregon, and when I was 2, my parents moved to Stillwater. And I have a younger sister, and I just had the best time growing up in Stillwater. My mom was a counselor at the Stillwater Middle School. She started that later in life, and so we grew up, and I graduated from SHS, Stillwater High, and then Oklahoma State. And I remember people talking to me about things or complimenting me about things that I was good at in my life, but I didn't, and I always excelled in academics. That was important because I'm very goal oriented, and if I decide I'm gonna make a certain grade or do a certain thing, then I'm gonna do it. And I just, for some reason, whatever the reason, kind of lost my confidence in college in trying to figure out what I wanted to major in.
That's very common, right? Everyone's got all these.
Was all over
asking.
the map.
Yeah,
all over the map.
There's so many choices.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I majored in?
I'm gonna guess. Maybe something related to home ec. No, I'm just teasing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was accounting.
Accounting.
It was accounting.
Oh my gosh.
So, and my husband's a CPA.
I said home ec because if you see her house, it's gorgeous.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Very
and see, I love
elegant
that.
And homey.
I love that.
Yeah, so I thought maybe you figured out something there. Yeah.
And so I, for lack of just not knowing what to do, I went into business. And then even on the last day that I had to declare a major, I went in and declared accounting. And I was thinking, I guess I'll do accounting. I mean, it's, for me, in my mind, I like security.
Sure.
And this was a guaranteed job.
Yeah.
I think you always can work in accounting. It's a great background in business. You know, it's a great background to have.
You chose practicality.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yes. Did I love it?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
But I found out through different tests that I've taken, I'm a lifelong learner. So I love learning. So I did love learning accounting.
Okay.
And so
That was amazing.
what happened too, when I graduated, actually, even a year before I graduated, or a year and a half before I graduated, I was offered a job for Ernst & Young in Dallas. And that was kind of a big deal because I was a junior in college, and they flew me down, and we stayed at a really nice hotel. They put this whole group of us up. We did all these fun things, went to dinner, got to see, everything there. And so it was kind of wooing me into, this is amazing, and I love Dallas, and I was from Little Stillwater, and
you got to New York City and Midwest,
right? Yeah. And so I thought, this is good. This is going to be good for me. This path, I'm okay. Well, then I got out, and I actually then moved to Dallas and became an auditor, a staff auditor, and nobody was happy to see me because we were external auditors. So we were going into companies and auditing, their financials. And so it is a little bit of a burden when the auditors come in because they kind of take over. We weren't given a great spot. I mean, a break room or a small, like I've been in closets, all of that. And I've had doors closed on my face. But what's interesting is Ernst & Young knew that. And so we went through training before that to identify ways to connect with people. Even down to if you see a picture on somebody's desk complimenting their family and asking about that and trying to form quick connections because, you want to be in there in and out, but you also want to have a good rapport with the client. Sure. And so I learned some valuable information, in relating to people.
People who didn't like you because they didn't like what you were doing, not you.
So yes.
And you had to engage them and warm their hearts anyway.
Yes. Yeah. But it was shocking for me because I know people would close their door on me. They would turn off their phones. Anyway, and it was just, it was very unnerving for me. I thought, this is not the field for me. This is not the field for me. Yeah. So I ended up leaving Ernst & Young, moved back to Tulsa, and it's interesting because when I went into, you'd call them a headhunter or a recruiter, when I went in to see the recruiter, I was talking about things that I wanted to do in my life, and they said, well, we have an opening here if you're interested. And so I actually started working, it's called Robert Half International. And so I started working at Robert Half, and I would help people find jobs that they enjoyed. And I enjoyed that side of it.
Wow. Well, that was much.
So I had the technical expertise talking to people about accounting because I was on the account temp side, and I even worked my way up to be a manager. And I just loved working with people. Great. But it was that experience early on that I realized I was so unhappy going to work. Yeah. I mean, in fact, to where I just was sick that I had to go to work. I dreaded it and was just upset that I had majored in accounting and I was on that route. But when you go 4 years in college, then it's kind of like you have to kind of make the best of it,
Absolutely.
At least for a while.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
Well, and it helped clarify something for you, right? So everyone calls those things failures, but I call those just more information about something that you needed to know, and you vetted yourself in a certain role in accounting. Yes. And identified some things that you wouldn't know until you're actually experiencing it. And then you go, this isn't fitting. This doesn't feel good.
I will say there were red flags, or, it was like a gut feeling like, I don't know if I should be majoring in this. I don't know. Questions
and doubts.
Yeah. But the people too, who I was good friends with, who I still am friends with to this day, who we were all accounting majors, and would study together. I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed learning. And so that was good. Well, when I left, Robert Half, I ended up going into teaching, and this gets on a whole nother path because I was able to use accounting, but it wasn't in the method that I thought. it was going to
So
be.
everything found a purpose. You could pull
Yes.
something from this, leverage that,
Yes.
right? Pull from this, and kind of fine tune and tweak as you went. More of you coming out in what you do, perhaps, right? Because I think that's the best we can do. I feel like it's a scavenger hunt, right? We're kind of trying to get clues and cues, but we have to head out on the path. We have to get experiential data in order to get the feedback and get clarification, get a sense of ourselves. And so as you were going that way, you go, oh, I'm going to turn left here, turn right here, like Dr. Seuss says again, go back here to the left and over this way. But each way you could take a little bit about what you just did and say, well, I can leverage that and I can do this with that. And then I can go from this to that. And eventually you're like, then next was teaching, I guess. Was the next thing?
Well, actually, I will say I skipped one little part. So I went from there and I had a job as a recruiter at the University of Tulsa. And I recruited high school students to attend. So I was an admission counselor. So I went from recruiting at Robert Half and then a recruiter at TU, but an admission counselor. So I was recruiting high school students to attend TU.
Okay.
And so while I was there, though, I earned my MBA.
Oh, nice.
So then that enabled me to be able to teach at TCC.
Okay.
So, yes.
And that's what you've been doing the last 20 years, is that right? Teaching?
Yes.
And business? And
so accounting for 15 years. And then about the last 5 or 6, just another area, but it's general business. So introduction to business is what I teach.
Well, I think everybody can tell if they don't know you in person or can just hear you, that you have such an open, positive, enthusiastic spirit. And I feel like that's a really essential, very helpful, obviously, personality trait. That as we do navigate life, if we stay open, if we stay positive, right, keep learning, like you have a tendency to do, right, and continue to show initiative, that you will expedite your process on the scavenger hunt, right? Because we're all trying to get a life that's more and more fitting to us, right? Getting it to where when we get up, we're actually really excited to get out of the bed, to get into the day, to get into that life that we've created. And I think a lot of people don't wake up feeling that way. And so what I like to do is encourage them by people like you, Nancy, who have found your way more and more and more to your more true calling, working more from your gifts and your interests, so that when you get up into the day, you're excited and you're ready to discover what is it going to bring today, right? It's going to be new things, and it's going to keep opening up on new levels. And that's, to me, how life is designed. And many people don't seem to have figured out how to get aligned, right, with their work and with how they live and with who they live with, to be able to manifest that type of experience of themselves in their lives, right? So you just stayed open, and you kept learning, and you kept leveraging your experience and your relationships. And then eventually you had your MBA, and you were then going into teaching and been doing that for all these years. So how did we get from that to where you could think about a podcast and get it niched this way? And be where you've gotten to today. That's exciting.
That's such a great question. Okay, so I've also, you and I know Betty Casey.
Yes, ma'am. We love Betty Casey.
I love her too. Yes, at Tulsa Kids. So she's been my editor for 20 plus years as well. And so when I had my daughter, I talked to her about, because I love to write, and I talked to her about doing an article on a monthly basis. And my daughter was young, and I was starting to teach at TCC, and she said, well, yeah, I've been thinking about doing a product review. And she had all these products piled up in her office, that Tulsa Kids was getting. And so she gave me a chance. And so then that was 15 years of writing about products.
Oh.
And I loved it because
Wow.
I came up with a little questionnaire, and I would give the product to different friends with age appropriate kids, for this product. And then I'd interview them, and I'd ask them how they liked the product and what they liked about it. And I had a little scale of how many hearts that they really liked the product, 1 out of 5. And so anyway, so she let me do that for 15 years. And so as my kids got older, though, that kind of it changed, like my views and what I was looking at, and my kids were older and I was getting these baby toys, and I thought, I'm not really, into this anymore. So I talked to her again, and I actually took just a little bit of a break. It was probably, I don't know if it was quite a year, but I just said, I'm not interested in doing this anymore. Well, I missed it so much, and I called her back, probably really not even after a year, and I said, I'm thinking about talking to people who love what they're doing, who are passionate about what they're doing. And she said, I think that'd be great. I have an idea for a column title. It's called Green Country Grown Up. You can interview people around the green country area. And it aligns so well because the students who I was teaching at Tulsa Community College were just so interested in my guest speakers that I had. And I thought, if I could have all these different guest speakers come in and talk to them, because it's one thing for me to talk about my own experiences. The students that I have don't have a ton of experience to share. And so I was thinking, if I could bring seasoned people in that could talk about their wins, their failures, what they learned from, different ideas. And so I thought, maybe I'll write about these people. So I started writing about these different people in Tulsa Kids, and I love writing for Tulsa Kids, but it's just one time a month. And so there's 12 issues. And I thought, there's all these people I want to meet and talk to. And
how are you finding people? I mean, did you find that many people who actually love their jobs?
Yes. Can you believe?
I was going to go. That would have been the first problem. I would have thought, okay, where is somebody?
There are so many. There are so many. But what's interesting is, of course, they didn't start out that way, right. And through different things that they've learned and they're, that they could share, then now they are passionate about what they're doing. So there are a lot of people out there, and that's what I'm hoping, to bring to people. But anyway, so it was kind of an inspiration from, I guess, Tulsa Community College students wanting to hear about these different experiences from guest speakers. And I thought, the Tulsa Kids was once a month, and I thought, if I have my own podcast, and I just started thinking, if I had a podcast, I can interview people in Salt Lake City, in Chicago, in New York, in wherever.
Wow, broaden the vision beyond Tulsa.
Yes, beyond Tulsa. But there's so many amazing people in Tulsa. So the majority are in Tulsa, because I like to get together with people in person via doing it over Zoom. But so it was like TCC students, and then just interviewing so many great people through Tulsa Kids, where I wanted to do more and more and more.
Yeah. And then awesome, excuse me for interrupting.
Well, no. So it just turned into, I think I should have a podcast. So
that way you could tell more of the stories and have an opportunity to get more people known with their story than just once a month.
Yes.
So your mind keeps opening things up, doesn't it? It just says, okay, I have this conviction, which is I don't really want to do children's products anymore, right? Mm-hmm. I'm past that season. So you showed the openness to shifting, right? The season for this is coming to an end, right? It's feeling stale. It's feeling not as interesting. And I think a lot of people need to learn to listen, to their spirit and know when a season is up, right? So you did. It sounds like you said, my kids are older. I don't really care about little kids and little toys anymore. I think this season's up. But as you began to tell Betty that and then not do it, then you missed it. So then you had a new concept, right? Which is, I want to talk about people who are loving their work, because your kids were probably figuring out what they're going to do in college. You figured yourself out at another level, I'm guessing, and you were teaching a lot of students who were searching for that. So you had a lot of inroads going to that same destination, it sounded like. And then I'm really intrigued with how you found so many people, but I love that. But you have, obviously. And so then that became the beginning of the podcast. You registered it in 18 and then started it in 20 and have gone now for 3 years. And so what did you start out believing about that, and what has it become relative to what you thought it was going to be? Because I'm sure there's been some things that have been interestingly discovered along the way.
Yeah, it started out because I have such a passion doing it. I will admit it has been slow growing because my MBA is in marketing, but I'm not the best at marketing myself.
Sure.
And so I need to get it out there a lot more and, need to be doing that. But for me, just the fact that I'm getting to have these stories, get these stories out there is so exciting for me. And meeting all these people. And it's funny because you say, how did you find these people? So a lot of it is word of mouth. So when I interview somebody, then they'll say, oh, I have a couple people I'd love for you to talk to. So it's like passionate people know other passionate people.
Very good. I like
and
that. Yeah.
Yes. And so even somebody you recommended that I meet, I'm meeting her today at 2:30.
You're kidding.
No.
Becky?
So, yes.
Awesome. That's
so
fantastic.
Anyway, yes,
that's
but,
awesome.
Anyway, so it's been interesting to be able to, have it evolve to get to meet and see who's in whose network too.
Yeah.
And who knows who, because it's surprising how many people know each other.
Yes.
Especially in Tulsa, but beyond, it's very, very interesting.
Well, and I think what's interesting is I've often thought, like you talked about the marketing and it's slow growing and getting it out there. I think a lot of people get caught up in how whatever they're going to do is going to be successful. And, and at least I know I'm sort of projecting onto a lot of people off of myself. And I go, well, if I can't do it really perfectly, and if I can't get it really big and really, successful, then I just don't want to do it. Or I get discouraged and maybe stop. And I love the fact that what you did is you worked what I call from the inside out, right? What was your passion? What were you going to gain meeting these people, getting to share their story? And that brought you joy. And you would love for it to grow, definitely, but you haven't let the fact that it getting big and successful be the metric to determine whether or not you kept on going, right? You've worked from a place of this is fulfilling and I'm learning and I'm getting great stories and I'm meeting great people. And I know a few more people have heard about this person now because of my podcast, at least, and most likely hundreds of more, and I'm sure maybe thousands. So you are just trusting the process from the inside out, from what brings meaning and purpose to you, right? And enjoyment.
Yeah, and there are so many people that I interview who are not big time. I mean, pretty much everybody I interview, is got just something amazing that they're doing that I'm excited, to have them share. And so I'm wanting to help them grow. And so if I can help them by interviewing them and then exposing them to the small audience I have, then I'm thrilled to do that. And so I do think that it will grow. But for me, I just love doing it. And so that's why I'm doing it.
I love that. Well, and I love the fact too that you, like me, meet the most amazing people. Like I've met you and I said, I want to interview you, Nancy, because you're just amazing and people need to know you better. So the same drive that you are having with all these folks, I can share in that because I want to share really good people with the world. I want to encourage people about how many great people there are that we don't know about, that are just everyday people, right? Not hugely prominently, famous, but are all around us that have amazing things they have cultivated in their lives or invented or are doing for the community. And I, like you, a little evangelist, I want to tell everybody about them. So that's a fantastic, I love that value, that you want to help others be known and therefore be able to grow what they're trying to grow, and then therefore even have a greater contribution as a result. So I'm curious about passion and purpose. If you would want to take a few minutes and talk about how you define them and what is the relationship with each other.
Oh, okay. So passion, I believe, is what lights you up, what gets you excited, what gets you excited to do that thing because you're so passionate about it. Okay. And I think purpose equals fulfillment.
Okay.
And so if you're doing something that you are excited, that lights you up, and that's unique to every person, they're unique. I guess there's special stuff that has been instilled into them, but it's going through and doing what they're passionate about, I think makes a contribution to life, but then also it makes them fulfill their purpose in life.
Yeah. And then purpose some people say, is purpose decided like by, the universe or by God or by some external thing? Or is it something you could actually be just discovering and establishing for yourself? And, does it have to be like a big thing that's like going to change the world? Or could it be something that's just, for you personally?
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody how they have, because it's just a sense, like having that sense of fulfillment. But for me personally, I feel like God is the one that has given me my talents, my gifts, my abilities that determine what I'm passionate about as well. Mm-hmm. And then also, what leads to me feeling fulfilled, which, my family has been a huge part of me being fulfilled, having kids, being married for me, and now this podcast and sharing stories. Yeah. I feel like this is my purpose. And I will say too, I think purpose can change in different seasons.
Yes, we were referring to that earlier.
And so, right now in my life, this is where I need to be.
Yeah, perfect. And when you think about finding purpose, some people don't really have a sense of it as clearly as you have come to know it. Have you heard that?
Yes, and I hear that all the time.
It's interesting, isn't it? For some of us, it has been really natural. I always say it's because I can't do anything else. The only thing that matters to me is I love, like you said, I love to get to know people. I love to get to know their stories. I love to get to know what they're learning. I don't want to miss out on anything. So I want to find out what everybody knows, right? Where they've been.
We are the same, David.
What they do there, right?
Yes.
I want to know how they see the world. People that have been older. I have a 94-year-old client. I just love hearing how she shares about life from that vantage point. Mm-hmm. We have a 101-year-old friend, Julie and I, that we talked to from about World War II, and who's been in the room with Winston Churchill and Harry Truman. And I'm going, can I just touch you? You were, in that room, in the space, and wow. And just to feel a part of history through people. Mm-hmm. And all the worlds and experiences of life that each person has that provides a really unique vantage point on life, right? That we can only have the one that we've got. But as we get into the heads of all these people we're talking to, right, whether it's my clients or your guests, we're getting to see, and or authors or other people who have their podcast, we're getting to see the world through all their eyes and through their experiences. And then that just makes our experience of life get so much deeper and richer. But some people actually say, I don't know my purpose, right? And so I spend a lot of time, and I'm sure maybe you can attest to this, saying, well, your first step is to get to know yourself better. And I realize a lot of people got hijacked early on in life in their search of just coming to know self, right? They were reared in a family where they needed to be something for their mother or for their community, right? They needed to perform for their church. They needed to sort of work up what I call from the outside in. They were determining kind of what the outside societal forces said they should be to be acceptable and to be somebody that would be considered good or right, and they started forming and making decisions in reaction to that. And so then as they got launched, they started making bigger decisions about who they would be with in a relationship and how they would live and what they would work. They were working off data that was, I call, corrupted data. Was it based in an accurate connection to them? And so all the decisions made from that point might look really good. Like, I'll become a lawyer, mother will love that. Or if you're a Catholic, I'll become a priest. That'll get your mom really happy. Did you know that? Yeah.
I'm sure.
Right?
My mom is Catholic, but yes.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to become a priest, I mean, you're like that. And so, but then was that true? Yeah. So now you're trying to figure out your passion when you put a whole self together and a life together that's not congruent, not aligned, right? So a lot of times we have to deconstruct and sort of just say, we got to get back down to the core of you. So I just always think a lot of people might look at us and just go, well, that's great, Nancy and Dave. Y'all are wonderful. You have passion and purpose and you're living your fulfilled lives, and you seem so happy. But where do I begin And I think oftentimes I just want to encourage whomever that is, if they're listening today, that a lot of times the first step is to kind of go down to the basics and get back to the true core self, and you can do that by journaling and therapy and reading and having different experiences that you've been curious about in terms of travel and different kinds of things, and maybe a faith journey. But all of that with the goal being, I want to come to the core. I want to come to the truth. I want to come to really know myself, and then from that knowing, everything else starts to open up, right? Mm-hmm. And you had the ability to naturally do that process, it sounds like, because you knew self in the beginning. And you mentioned something at the very beginning I wanted to speak about. You said a lot of people would affirm you. And I don't know if you remember saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And that was so helpful, that you were getting like feedback about things about you that people saw, and they spoke that to you. Mm-hmm. And that's so important for parents as you think about that with your children. You need to begin to be very intentional as you see the gifts emerging from your child, to speak that and acknowledge that, to verbalize that, to help them know themselves from that way. And you had that, which is beautiful. And I was wondering, I was real curious, who was that and what made you say that? Because I think that's a real critical part of the process when people are starting to come into knowing themselves, is to have our community, our family, other people that we're in life with, see us and give us some feedback and help validate what we think inside might be who we are, right? And might be able, with that increased sense of knowing from others, be able to have more confidence in it and to own it. Yeah. What were a couple of examples that made you say that anyway? I was just curious.
Well, it just people talking about how I'm good with people, how I'm interested in people. And when I tell them, that I was an accounting major, then it would always throw everybody back. Why are you accounting? What are you?
That didn't fit for how they saw you.
Didn't fit. And so those little red flags, and also struggling through my classes. So my husband's a CPA, and he is, I think, brilliant, and didn't have to hardly study at all for any tests, even as CPA, and I
sounds like he was naturally aligned for this type of work.
I mean, he's just smart anyway, but it was like I was just struggling through these classes. So when I talked about getting to have a good group of friends in my major, because we were all working so hard, studying and so it didn't come naturally to me. It wasn't easy, but I'm always up for a challenge. So I thought, okay, and I was learning.
Yes.
So it was interesting. Yeah. But I just think those little red flags along the way,
right,
or my gut feeling of, I don't know if I should be doing this. Maybe I should be a communications major or public relations, which now I'm in public relations. So
you got there, yeah. So it's interesting. So first of all, we those of you who are trying to figure out where your passion is, where your purpose is, like Nancy has already accomplished. First, one of the clues is we try to be in a community where people who know us so they can speak into our lives. We try to listen to our gut, and we try to identify from getting to know ourselves honestly and authentically what is aligned with us naturally. Like accounting was not aligned naturally. So you thought, well, you need to work hard in life. Well, it was working hard, but it was also a lot hard and then not fulfilling. So another red flag. So watching for those red flags. Right? And so between all of those factors, it begins to stay, like Matthew McConaughey's book is called Green Light. Sometimes this is kind of more of a yellow light. You're kind of going through it, but it kind of wasn't flowing, right? It wasn't completely a red because you're actually capable of it. And that's tricky when some people actually, when they work hard, can do something. Like, we could have learned the accounting, but it's not natural and you could do it today. That's kind of hard when you're in a yellow light zone, right? But it's never quite right. You're not going through smoothly, right? Whereas your husband and my wife, by the way, we're both married to CPAs.
Oh, that's right.
Both of them love that, and it's very natural to their temperament. And to their brain. And so that green light, that was a natural thing just to go on through. So, but it is interesting, your first decision, like a lot of ours when we're in earlier lives, and I think a lot of your listeners will probably appreciate this, a lot of times we're making those decisions not from a place of passion, not from a place of heart, but more from a place of the mind, more the left brain analytic that's practical, right? You bought an insurance policy with your profession, right? Accounting, I can work forever, anywhere.
True.
Right? And I can make a good living, right? And so that's a commendable, right? Say I'm going to try to make, just go to college and, study basket weaving, right? I'm going to study something I can actually make a living with. And then leveraged it through. So if you're at the place where you've decided on accounting and you're really more of a communications person or you're whatever, just know that whatever you start, you can find your way as you listen within to your heart and think about your interests, your talents, your curiosity, and you follow that out. Over time, you can curate a profession that is more true to you and more expressive of you, and therefore fulfilling and passion driven. And that's what the Nancy Moore journey has been, it sounds like. And today then helping others find their way by telling testimonies, getting people's stories of each of their journeys. So we know it's not just Nancy, it's not just David. There's hundreds of thousands of people who have found their way to that kind of work that's meaningful and passionate in a life then that's really worth getting up for. And you're doing your part to bring those stories and help people be inspired and encouraged to not give up, and then hearing their journey so they know the hard parts and they know what people did when it was hard and how they overcame it and how they persevered and then how they arrived and how now they live that way. And it's possible. You can live a life passionately driven, purpose driven, fulfilling, interesting, and true to your talents and your interests. And so that's a fantastic testimony, Nancy. I love it. Is there anything else that you want us to know that maybe you wish someone would ask you that you just don't really know how to get out unless someone asks you? Like, I'm curious about what would you think is your superpower or your special sauce that has allowed you to do this? Because that's quite impressive, and you're a doer. You don't just think of your ideas, you execute. And that's unusual. Most of us are either ideas people, and we have lots of great ideas and nothing gets done, and there's a lot of doers, but they don't have any ideas.
Yeah.
So their doing stays very small and very tedious.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am very goal oriented. So when I set a goal, I have to follow through. I have to achieve it. And I would say positivity would be my secret sauce. Okay. Aside from goal setting and working on goals, positivity, because I just naturally inherited that from my mother. And
it's very optimistic and believing and expecting. And
I've got to look at the bright side. And I shouldn't say I've got to. I just look at the bright side.
You just do, what other side is there, right? Yes. I mean, what other side leads to hope? What other side leads to new possibilities except the brighter side, right? Yes. The other side is dark and it's pretty much predictably zero, right? Yeah. So real quickly, I know we only have a couple more minutes. What if you took positivity and you took goal setting? So one of them is the goal setting is your left brain side. So that's making a plan, and positivity is your right brain side. Okay. That's the energy that fuels you to go for the goals. Okay. Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Yes. So what we'd like to know is tactically, a lot of people go, how do you do your goals? Right? Because everyone hears goal setting. We've heard that forever. In fact, when I was a kid, I just drew a big circle and divided it into like a pie. And I wrote physical fitness, finance, spirituality, relationships. I just took the different parts of my life and I said, be more fit this year and, get more money next year and whatever. Kept it real general. I didn't have podcasts. We didn't have computers, back then, right?
Yes.
You had like Zig Ziglar somewhere.
No, I love Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar is out there, right?
Yes.
There was occasional someone coming along with a thing. But so tell us tactically, how do you do your goals? And then we're going to talk about tactically, how do you cultivate positivity? As maybe kind of our ways to wrap up. Okay,
so my goals, I think that it's important for me, because I like to write things down and I like to see it in front of me. And so I'll write my goals down and then I set out to get it organized for if it's 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever. And then I even break it down into weekly, daily,
Perfect.
what I'm going to focus on.
Perfect.
And so that is something that's a non-negotiable for me. So I have to work on that before I can do other things, or, I think it's a gift to myself, even if it's just 5 minutes working on something, because 5 minutes adds up over a week, a month,
So when you write it down, do you have some specific type of organizer? Do you use a whiteboard? What does this look like for your listeners if they were trying to do something?
I have a notebook.
Okay.
I have a notebook that I write it down. And then for me, then all of that, I have a planner. And all of it is written down in the planner. Perfect.
Okay. So when you talk about that.
Physically written.
Okay, that's perfect. And that's what the research shows. In 1953, they did a big, what's called a longitudinal study. That means it goes over a long period of time. And they interviewed the graduates of Yale to ask, did they have goals that they had actually written down? Isn't that interesting? So they were doing a lot of research back then, probably out of the work of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and a lot of the early 1900s. And so they were going to take these real up-and-coming, obviously very well-educated, go, look, if y'all don't have goals, nobody's going to have them, right? And y'all can't make it happen. You've got all the opportunity in the world. Well, interestingly enough, of the entire class, only 3% had goals that were written down. Isn't that weird? So it was not well known to do that, but 3% had innately done what you do, what I was doing. So we were in the 3%, Nancy. So 97th percentile. Well, yeah, I was doing that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So basically those 3% were followed for 30 years to find out what happened to them compared to the 97% who didn't. And the interesting thing was, as you might imagine, graduating from Yale, most of the goals were about making money. And the 3% were worth more in their net value than the 97% combined of the rest of the Yale graduating class. So the ones who had identified what they needed, what they wanted, made a plan, written it down, their brain knew exactly where to go with all their decisions. It's kind of like a GPS. Set it up, set up the path, and the brain and the decisions and all the relationships and everything went in response to that all the way to the amass fortunes of more than the 97% of Yale graduates, which would have to be a lot of money, just the ones who didn't have the goals, right? So that's kind of an encouraging study. And what I'm hearing with yours is you have, with a goal, a vision, and then you have your goal plans or your strategies for the vision, and then your calendar book is your tactics. So you're taking your strategies, which will be the actions that are going to be required towards this new goal. And then you're translating that onto your calendar, which is what most people do not do. That's the brilliant part. You get tactical. So the bottom part of my little pyramid, of the top of it being like vision, that's my big goal. Here are my action steps to get this goal. Like you got one coming up you're going to work on next for doing a live podcast. Right? In a restaurant at the Vault, I think. Right? And so you have this as the vision. Then you have, okay, what are the different things that are going to need to happen to get that organized? And then you bring it down to tactically, what does that mean I need to do in my schedule over the next X period of weeks and months toward this goal to get that done? And you've got it now down into where your brain knows exactly what to do each day to accomplish that, which is fascinating and fantastic, and most people don't do. So that's the Nancy Moore secret for success there with goals. And then how do you cultivate the positivity? I know you're naturally that way. But... Okay,
so first thing in the morning, I pray, I work on my Bible app, and then I set my intentions for the day.
Okay.
And I think that helps me so much in just even before my feet hit the ground, before I get up, and then I work out, and I do things too that help me get my blood flowing and all of that.
Endorphins.
But just having that time in the morning, my spiritual time, and then just even coming up with things. I pray for people who are on my prayer list.
Beautiful.
But then I just have like things that I'm thankful for too.
I hear gratitude. Yes, I was expecting that to be a part of the recipe.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Like 3 things every day that I'm grateful for. Yeah. And I'm good about doing that. I'm not good at night about ever wrapping up with anything. I tried to get into that, but I feel like in the morning, first thing, it just sets my day and the tone of my day so well to
That's awesome. Well, and you're doing what the research shows. All the podcasts now that are about getting the most out of ourselves and the high performance, high maximum results of humans stuff. Everyone talks, and there's many, many books now about your morning routine, and you're doing it. That you start with intention, you start with meditation, and you start with gratitude, and you start with exercise. And in other words, you get the brain on point. You establish for the brain what matters. That's what intention is, right? And then you're meditating prayerfully on how you will be fueled spiritually and empowered toward that end, right? Then you're even thinking about other people, which a lot of people don't do, and is a big and very powerful thing, that our heart and our minds are directed towards the needs of others. Otherwise, we will get self-absorbed. And then that's not helpful. That's not really the most powerful energy force, is to be self-absorbed. It comes out of serving others. So your prayer for others and thoughtfulness of others and what actions you can take for others is supporting that. And then your exercise to get the endorphins, to get the blood flow, to get the brain as focused as it can, to give yourself energy then for the day, is the perfect startup routine, and is what all folks who actually are goal-oriented and successful in life do. So it's not surprising. And of course, you did and talk about gratitude. How do we have joy, which fuels positivity? We think about the things we've been blessed with. We think about the things that really we're so humbly, very, very fortunate to have, that most of the earth doesn't have. And we really give that some attention. The heart and the body can respond to what you focus on. And if you don't stop and take that in, you never felt it, and you didn't get the joy from it. And then you get the energy and the positivity that comes from that. So that's the secret sauce that you're talking about in your superpower. And those are the practices that will support positivity and actually execute on goals from the energy of the positivity to make the purpose-filled and passionate life that you've got. So that's well done.
Thank you.
So good. I'm so proud. That's wonderful to get some behind the scenes with Nancy. And I appreciate you letting me be the one who gets to share with your people about you, because I know you won't do it. So I thought,
You're right.
So.
And I have been asked by others, and for some reason, I felt like you were the one to sit down and visit with.
I'm so honored. Well, thank you, Nancy.
This has been great.
I loved every minute of it. So thank you for letting me come to your house and talk about you. And I know it's going to help all of your guests, all your upcoming guests, all of your listeners, and it inspires me and reminds me what to keep doing. So I appreciate you taking the time to share with us.
Well, I appreciate your time, because I know how booked you are and how busy you are and how in demand you are. And so to take a little time out of your day to come and speak with me and record and ask me such insightful and wonderful questions that I am so excited to share with people. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. It was my honor. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.